On a night when everyone turned away, one stranger's kindness found a forgotten man on the edge of despair. What followed was a ripple of hope that neither could have imagined. A true miracle in the heart of darkness. Stay till the end, because the revelation waiting for you will transform how you see the power of compassion. If this story moves you, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an uplifting moment. Leave a comment below telling which city or country you're rewatching from. I'd love to see where kindness is reaching people all around the world. And don't forget to share this video with someone who believes in the power of compassion. The city lay shrouded under a dense cloak of winter darkness, the streetlights barely cutting through the mist as people hurried home to warmth and safety. Among them, invisible yet ever-present, sat Richard, an aging man whose shoulders hunched beneath a coat several winters past saving, whose breath came in short, clouded bursts that disappeared into the uncaring air. The bench beneath him was cold, unforgiving, its metal biting through layers of fabric and flesh alike. But Richard was numb to pain now. Hunger, fatigue, and sorrow had hollowed him out, leaving only bones and memories that pressed relentlessly against his heart. He watched the world flicker by, cars splashing through melted snow, lovers arm in arm sharing jokes, parents hustling children home before the deep freeze set in. All of life carried on, and Richard felt life's rhythm only in the slow, persistent drumming of his own pulse, each beat proof he still existed, despite everything. Once, he'd had a life just as full, a career in accounting, a two-bedroom apartment with creaky floors that echoed with the laughter of his daughter, Sundays spent at the park tossing bread to ducks. Those were days when the future seemed bright and endless, when a setback at work vanished with the comfort of family. But a series of misfortunes unraveled the fabric of that security. Company downsizing, mounting bills, the slow dissolution of old friendships, as pride kept him silent about his struggles. Richard's world contracted to a small circle, first his home, then only a bag of possessions, until even those slipped away one rain-drenched winter. He learned the habits of the unseen, how to blend into the backdrop, how to beg without meeting a stranger's eyes, how to sleep sitting up so as not to be moved on by the police. The city, which once held adventure in every corner, now threatened only indifference. It was on this particular night, one of the coldest the city had seen in years, news reports cautioning residents to stay indoors, that Richard's hope began to flicker towards extinction. He pressed his back into the bench, arms crossed tightly, gaze unfocused. He was down to his last crust of bread and a near-empty thermos of what used to be coffee. His body trembled, not just with cold, but with accumulated exhaustion. He thought, not for the first time, how much easier it would be to simply not wake up. Yet, as he drifted between sleep and waking, the quiet ache for connection remained, sharper than the wind. Without warning, footsteps slowed and stopped nearby, a rarity since most people gave a wide berth to street benches at night. Richard's grip tightened nervously on his bag of belongings. Even the most vulnerable knew to be wary after dark. His head pivoted slightly, not making full eye contact, sensing the presence of another and preparing for the quick, stiff rebuff he'd learned to expect. But this time, the voice that broke the silence was neither harsh nor hurried. Instead, it carried a warmth and gentleness that cut right through the chill. "Sir, are you all right? Would you mind if I sat with you for a moment?" It was a simple question, but it bore no judgment, only genuine concern. In that moment, Richard's story took a new turn, one that neither he nor the stranger could have ever predicted. And so began a sequence of events that would ripple far beyond the boundaries of this cold city night. Richard looked up, surprised to meet the soft eyes of a woman who smiled not out of politeness, but from an honest desire to connect. She wore a bright red scarf, mismatched gloves, and offered her own shivering body a place beside his on the frozen bench. "My name's Sarah. I pass this way most evenings after my shift," she explained. not waiting for permission, but making her presence comforting rather than intrusive. Fumbling in her tote bag, she produced a steaming paper cup and extended it. "It's just coffee, but it's hot." Without waiting for him to accept, she placed it beside him, careful not to crowd his space. The simple gesture floored Richard. He'd received coins, the occasional sandwich, but rarely had anyone ever chosen to sit, to share the most valuable resource of all, time. He mumbled his thanks, hands shaking as he lifted the cup, feeling its heat seep into his palms. Sarah didn't pepper him with uncomfortable questions as others did. She simply sat, feet swinging, staring up at the stars as if they were old friends. Gradually, the silence grew companionable rather than strained. When she eventually spoke, her words were casual, almost playful, recounting her day, small mishaps at her job in the bakery, things that made Richard smile despite himself. Sensing he might want to talk, Sarah's questions when they came were gentle. "What's your name? Do you have somewhere warm to go tonight?" Trust, battered by years of disappointment, made Richard wary, but something in Sarah's presence made honesty feel possible. He offered his story in pieces, how quickly life unravels when one expense leads to another, about the jobs lost, the nights spent searching for shelter, the loneliness that gnaws more persistently than hunger. She listened, never interrupting, never casting pity, just understanding. Before leaving, Sarah reached into her bag again, this time producing a woolen blanket she'd bought on her way to work. "It's not much, but tomorrow, maybe bring an extra donut." "I'd love to hear more of your story," she said, her smile unwavering. For the first time in ages, Richard felt seen, not as a problem to be solved, but as a man whose journey mattered. As Sarah disappeared into the night, the bench felt less cold, the shadows less threatening, and a fragile hope began to kindle inside him. True to her word, Sarah returned the next evening, and the evening after that. Their conversations deepened, moving beyond the mechanics of survival to dreams deferred and small joys rediscovered. She brought small treats, an extra loaf, a pair of thick socks, sometimes just words of encouragement. Gradually, Sarah leveraged her community connections, speaking quietly to a friend who ran the local shelter, mentioning Richard's story to a co-worker who managed the food bank. Word spread. Soon, others offered help. A clean set of clothes, an invitation to a support group, even a prepaid phone that allowed Richard to reconnect with his estranged sister. The transformation, though invisible to those rushing by, was monumental for Richard. Where once he only saw closed doors, now each act of kindness was a key. In the warm glow of a shelter, safe for the first time in months, Richard slept soundly, a luxury he'd long forgotten. He was reminded, as the days grew lighter and spring approached, that even a heart frozen by hardship can thaw if met with enough warmth. What began as an accidental encounter beneath indifferent streetlights bloomed into a network of hope. And Richard, once invisible, discovered community not just as a lifeline, but as a purpose to embrace. With a roof over his head and 3 square meals a day, Richard found that the fortress of despair he'd built around himself began to crumble. At first, it was the simple joys that returned, the taste of freshly baked bread, a real pillow beneath his head, laughter shared over a cup of soup with other shelter residents. The world felt less hostile, and for the first time in years, Richard allowed himself to look forward. Sarah's friendship never wavered. As spring edged out the winter chill, she invited Richard to a volunteer event at her bakery, making sandwiches for a local children's home. Nervous but eager to give back, he agreed. The morning bustled with activity, and Richard found himself smiling widely as he worked alongside others, feeling the comfort of shared purpose. Sarah beamed at his transformation, introducing him to community leaders and even helping him navigate social assistance paperwork that would eventually lead to a small studio apartment. Word of Richard's perseverance and hope spread. The shelter's counselor offered career guidance, and Sarah's friend at the bakery gave him weekend hours to help clean and stock. Richard's hands, once weathered from cold, found new strength in work, in the satisfaction of earning once more. Little by little, routines built confidence. On weekends, he visited the public library to refresh his computer skills, drafting emails to reconnect with his family. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through library windows, he received a message from his sister. Their reunion, first on the phone, then in person, brought tears for lost time and gratitude for second chances. Throughout it all, Richard's gratitude overflowed. Each encounter fueled a resolve to pay kindness forward. He shared his story at the shelter, inspiring others in the depths of despair that hope could return, often in the most unexpected ways. He developed friendships with other formerly homeless individuals, creating a network of support that extended beyond meals and shelter, a reminder that true belonging grows from shared struggle and mutual encouragement. Sarah and Richard, once strangers linked only by a cold city bench, became steadfast friends. They attended city council meetings, advocating for greater resources for the homeless and volunteering at outreach events. Richard's honesty and vulnerability inspired all who heard him. His was a voice that spoke, unwavering, of the transformative power that a single act of kindness can wield when multiplied by community. Years passed, yet the memory of that coldest night remained vivid, etched in the corners of Richard's mind, not as a trauma, but as the moment he turned from surviving to truly living. Each day he crossed the same intersection where that life-changing encounter occurred, often pausing to hand out coffee or offer a listening ear to those lost in the city's shadows. He was no longer invisible. He was a beacon for those searching for hope. Sarah and Richard's friendship flourished, their bond evident not just in charity work, but in genuine moments of shared laughter, quiet support, and dreams of building a more compassionate world. Together, they launched a small nonprofit to serve the transient population, providing shelter, meals, and, most crucially, dignity. Richard's story became foundational, a reminder to every volunteer and shelter guest that the world can change with one decision to stop, to care, to risk a conversation. His greatest joy wasn't he measured in the apartment he now called home, or the steady job he maintained, but in each instance when someone repeated to him those words that started it all. "Thank you. You saw me when no one else did." For every struggle he'd faced, Richard now saw how each moment of pain prepared him to offer authentic comfort to others. He understood loneliness, so he championed community. He understood hunger, so he became someone who never let a friend go without. He recognized despair, and therefore could offer true hope. Richard's journey, sparked by Sarah's single act of compassion, became proof of humanity's interconnectedness. He came to believe that every city corner, every lonely bench, harbors within it the possibility of transformation. It takes very little, just the bravery to look someone in the eye, to offer warmth on a cold night, to see a story waiting to be rewritten. As he stood outside the shelter one evening watching the sun dip behind city buildings, Richard felt a profound sense of peace. No one is ever truly alone as long as kindness exists, and, when shared, its power echoes further than anyone can imagine. If this story has moved you, please subscribe for more stories of hope and transformation. Share in the comments below which city or country you are watching from, and join a global wave of compassion. Together, by seeing and supporting one another, we make the world a better place with every story we tell and every act of kindness we perform.